15, actually 14 on down to 21, and we're going to finish out from 17 to 21. Okay, so I'm going to start off when they started building the boat or asked to build the boat. He says, Genesis 6, verse 14. Okay, and it says, build build a large boat from cypress wood and waterproof it with tar inside and out. Then construct decks and stall throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening below the wood all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, mid, middle, and upper. Look, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will die. But I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, a male and female, into the boat with you to keep them alive during the flood. Pairs of every kind of bird and every kind of animal and every kind of small animal that scurries along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. And be sure to take on aboard enough food for your family and all the animals. So Noah did everything exactly as Yah or Elohim had commanded him. Okay. All right, we're going to verse 17. All right. King James Version. And it says, and behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life, from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. Okay. All right. And we went over this, but I'm going to go over these again. The reference that we're going to look at first is bring. Okay. Remember what I said about that off. Okay. That H853 off. That means that's his sign. He put it on there that this is something that he's going to do and he does only, and that it will more than likely happen again. Okay. All right. So he said bring. He's going to bring. Okay. He says, even I do bring a flood. Okay. So he's stamping that. He's bringing the flood. All right. Because of the wickedness. All right. He's bringing that flood. All right. Now we're going to go into those references. Genesis 7, verse 4. Genesis chapter 7, verse 4. And it says, 7 days from now I will make the rain pour down on the earth, and it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights until I have wiped from the earth all the living things I have created. Psalms 107, chapter 107, verse 34. And it says, he turns the fruitful land into salt wastelands because of the wickedness of those who live there. Okay. So again, we know he's destroying this place because of the wicked. All right. And there was only one person that he's seen that was righteous and perfect. Okay. Psalms 29 and 10. All right. And it says, Yahuwah rules over the floodwaters, and Yahuwah reigns as king forever. Just saying, this is saying that no matter what happens, one, he causes it, and he has his reasons of causing things, but he has the power to start it and to stop it. Okay? All right. Genesis 6, verse 18. King James Version. It says, "But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wives, thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee." Okay. All right. So again, behind covenant here, or establish, says establish off. Okay, off. All right, that's the sign again. All right, my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark. Okay, so again, the ark is a box. Okay, the ark is a box. It was covered with tar, which was, it was anointed, it was atoned for. Okay, now he's making his covenant. Ark of the covenant. Ain't that crazy? Ark of the covenant. And that's what that box was called, is the Ark of the Covenant. All right. So we looked at covenant last week. Understand that it meant it was a few different things. Uh, in the sense of cutting, okay? In the sense of cutting, all right? Because made by passing between pieces of flesh. So when he made a covenant with Abraham, okay, he had a couple different animals. I think it was some either lamb or goats or bull, and then a pigeon, and he cut them in half, and he saw uh, the Most High walk between the two, okay, and it was fire that was passing between. When he says Yahuwah, it was the fire passing between the pieces of the body of those sacrificial animals. Okay, so it was a fire going between, and that was the covenant he was making with Abraham. Okay, all right, so that's why it says pieces here. Okay, so also at the bottom it says confederacy. So he's making a confederacy. Okay, a league. All right, so it's a bond between me and you. All right, so he made a covenant. All right. So what we're gonna look at is, and it says 18, it says, "But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee." Okay, so he's telling them to come into that covenant, come into that ark to be protected. All right. So what is he being protected from? Flood, right? The flood. Okay, and we went over this last week. All right, and it says in the days of Noah. All right, so now we're looking at the future. We're looking at when the Messiah is going to come. All right, so we're going to look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 37. Okay. All right, this is the Messiah speaking here, and he says, when the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's days. In those days before the flood, people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. So people are just going to be oblivious to what's going on because they're living their life, living their best life. YOLO, only got one life to live. I'm going to live the best way I can live because I'm supposed to live the best way I think I should live. Where it's supposed to be about the Most High. Okay, so we get confused, or we get bombarded in that sin of um, do it thou wilt. All right. So and it says people did not realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. All right. So he's telling Noah at this time, get on the boat, you, your wife, your sons, and their wives, okay, into my covenant. Okay, I'm going to protect you, and then I'm going to make a covenant with you. Okay, all right. Now we're going to look at establish a covenant. Okay, Genesis 9:9, and it says, I hereby confirm my covenant with you and your descendants. Okay. This is just showing all the times that he make a covenant with somebody. This is with Abraham. Okay. That's with Abraham. Genesis 7:7. All right. He went on board the boat to escape the flood, and he and his wives and his sons and their wives. Okay. It's referring to what's happening right now. Genesis 17:7. And it says, I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. So that means forever. This is the everlasting covenant. There you go. I will always be your Elohim and the Elohim of your descendants after you. Okay? This is talking to Abraham. Okay? All right. Genesis 17:20-21. And it says, and my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, Abraham's son, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. All right. Confirming. He's speaking about the covenant. All right. And then we're going to look at Jeremiah 31:31. Okay. This is way past Abraham, way past his son, his grandson, Jacob, which is Israel, and his sons, Jacob, which is Israel, his 12 sons, okay, which is the tribes, multiple tribes of Israel. So Israel is Jacob. His sons is the 12 tribes. He had 12 sons, so each son is a tribe, represented as a tribe, okay? All right. Hit the 12 tribes. So it's not just Jews, because everybody know here Jewish, right? But they don't hear anything about the other sons. Okay. There's 12 sons. Okay. So this is important. So we're going to Jeremiah, and it says, um, the day is coming, says Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant, okay, with the people of Israel and Judah. Judah is Jews. Israel, he's referring to the rest of the brothers. Okay. So a lot of people get this confused. They think of Israel just being a place. Okay. Israel is not just a place. It's a person, and it talks about the tribes of Israel, which is the 12 brothers. Okay. All right. So it says the day is coming, says Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and Judah. All right. This covenant will not be like the one I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand and brought them out of the land of Egypt. They broke that covenant, though I loved them as a husband loves his wife, says Yahuwah. But this is a new covenant I will make with the people of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah. I will put my instructions deep within them, okay, in their heart, and I will write them on their hearts. I will be their Elohim, and they will be my people. Okay, so that's a covenant he's making. Okay, so this is just describing the covenants that he made, okay, with certain people. Okay, all right. Now, with that being said, and it says, "Come," we're going to look at that reference when he's telling them to come get on the boat. Okay, come get on the boat. All right, let's read. Let me just. It says, "And thou shalt come into the ark Okay, and it says, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives. Tell them to come. All right. He's literally saying, come into my covenant, come into protection. All right. So we're looking at this reference now. All right. And it says, Genesis um, chapter 7, verse 1. It says, when everything was ready, Yahuwah said to Noah, go into the boat with all the family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. Okay, so that's why he's making this covenant with them and saying, hey, I'm starting this new world with you and your sons and their wives. Okay. Isaiah 26 and 20, and it says, go home. So we went over this one last week. It says, go home, my people, and lock your door. So this is in the future, okay? This is Isaiah is prophesying. It says, go home, my people, and lock your doors. Hide yourselves for a little while until Yahuwah's anger has passed. Okay, and we went into that. All right, a little bit further. I think I did click on it, and I read a few of these. Um, my people will live in safety, quietly at home. They will be at rest, even if the forest should be destroyed and the city torn down. Okay, so this is the destructions. When he comes, he gives these instructions to his people. Okay, the people who love him and follow him. Okay, a male and female of each kind entered, just as Yahuwah had commanded Noah. Then Yahuwah closed the door, okay, behind them. Again, referring to go in, lock the door, okay, lock the door and wait till my anger is over, because I'm going to be doing my thing. I'm getting rid of all evil, okay. I'll read one more here. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones Elohim's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. So you're not going into his protection, okay? Into his room, into his covenant, right? So it's saying right now, he said he made a covenant, okay? And he wants you to walk into that covenant. And the boat for Noah is that covenant. Okay. All right. It says hide. It says guard me. This is King David, one of his psalms. It says, guard me as you would guard your own eyes. Hide me in the shadows of your wings. Okay. Read another one of these. Psalms 31:20. It says, you hide them in your shelter of your presence, safe from those who conspire against them. You shelter them in your presence, far from accusing tongues. Okay. And one more. Psalms 143 and 9. And it says, rescue me from my enemies, Yahuwah. I run to you to hide me. Okay. I'm going to go back and finish Genesis 18. All right, so we know we just looked at Isaiah 26 and 20. All right. Um, he says, go home, close the door, and hide until I get finished doing what I'm doing, destroying. Okay. First Peter 3 and 20. And it says, those who disobey Elohim long ago, when Elohim waited patiently while Noah was building his boat, only 8 people were saved from drowning in that terrible in that terrible flood. Excuse me. Again, it took a couple 100 years for him to build this boat. And he was telling everybody, he was warning everybody, hey, destruction's coming. All right, 2 Peter 2 and 5. And it says, and Elohim did not spare the ancient world except for Noah and the 7 others in his family. Noah warned the world of Elohim's righteous judgment. So Elohim protected Noah when he destroyed the world of ungodly people with a vast flood. He destroyed the world with a vast flood. Okay? And last week we went to the comparison of being protected and destroyed. Okay, Noah was protected from the flood, and the flood destroyed everything else. Right? Okay, so the similarities between what we just read, 2 Peter 2 and 5, okay, with Revelations 12, verse 13 through 18. All right, 13 through 18. All right. And it says, when the dragon realized, this is Revelations, this is the end, okay? And really, you can't really fully understand this unless you read the prophets in the Old Testament. But it says, when the dragon realized that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman. The woman is Israel, okay? The woman is Israel as a collective, okay? All right. He pursued the woman who had given birth to a male child. That's the Messiah. Okay. All right. That's the Messiah. But she was given 2 wings. All right. Like those of a great eagle, so she could fly to the place prepared, into that room, into that ark, place prepared for her in the wilderness. Okay. All right. So it was a point after the Exodus when Moses had took the people out of Egypt. He was talking to YAHUAH, the Most High, and Yahuwah was like, wasn't I the one to bring Israel out by eagle's wings? Okay, so when he's saying by eagle's wings, okay, it's the same thing. Is he did something drastic and fast. Okay, anytime when you hear wings swoop, he gets and it's fast. Okay, it's traveling fast or it's happening fast. He says here, it says, but she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle. All right. So she could fly to the place prepared for her. Okay. Now we're talking about Noah now. The place prepared for him was what? The ark. Okay. All right. And it says prepared for her in the wilderness. All right. And then it says she can be cared for and protected from the dragon for a times and a half a time. Okay. And it says, then the dragon tried to drown the woman with a flood of water that flowed from his mouth. Okay. Remember what we said the flood was last week? It is chaos, but no, it is chaos, but well, let me go on. We're gonna go back to that. And it says, but the earth helped her by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that gushed out from the mouth of the dragon. Okay. All right. I'm gonna finish this up, and it says, and the dragon was angry at the woman and declared war against the rest of her children, all who kept Yahuwah's commandments and maintained their testimony for Mashiach, okay, for Yahusha, the Mashiach, the Messiah. Then the dragon took his stand on the shore beside the sea. Okay. So I'm gonna click on 15 real quick. All right, click on 15, and it says cast. Okay, cast. Who are they talking about when they talk about flood? All right. So right now we know the woman is Israel. Okay, the 12 tribes. Okay, and the dragon spewed out or cast out a flood. Okay, after the woman. All right. So let's see. The rope of death entangled me. Floods of destruction swept over me. Okay, that's just saying what the flood is destruction. Okay, because we know right now for Noah the flood is destruction. But what we're gonna learn next week when we talk about the actual flood, um, um, Yahuwah is gonna say, "I will never again." Part of the covenant, he says, "I will never again destroy the world with a flood." Okay, with the actual water flood. Okay, but he's using flood as destruction here. Okay, let's go to another reference here. Psalms 65:7, and it says, "You quiet the raging oceans with their pounding waves, and silence the shouting of the nations." Okay, that says it, but it's not direct. Okay, let me go to one that's direct. Psalms 94, 3 through 4. Let's see if this is one. It says, let me go to the first one. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Revelation 17:15. And it says, "Then the angel said to me, the waters where the prostitute is ruling represents masses of people of every nation and tongue." So the flood is people. So remember when we talked about when something happens and the grid goes down or whatever, it's going to be chaos. So people of all nations is the flood. So of all nations, anarchy, that is the flood. So he's going to cause destruction because it's wicked, chaos. People are just going to be killing people. He's allowing the devil to come to cause these things. So he said, "I'm going to bring the flood," right? He brought the actual water flood. In the future, he's going to bring the flood of chaos or allow the devil to confuse, just like right now, how a lot of stuff is going on and everybody gets defended and everybody is just fighting, even if they're agreeing. So that is a sign that the devil is rampant. And Yahuwah is allowing it because the world is becoming more and more corrupt. In order for him to bring the flood, people are going to be deceived in their own desires. Okay, it's always a test. Okay, so now I'll read one more, and it says, "In the West, people will respect the name of Yahuwah. Okay, in the East, they will glorify him, for he will come like a raging flood tide, driven by the breath of Yahuwah." Okay, so, and it says, in the West, people will respect. That means people in the West do not respect him at all. We're talking about the western side of the eastern side of the world, and then the West, us, United States. The West will respect because we don't respect them. This is supposed to be a Christian nation. Okay, we don't respect him. Okay, and then it says, in the East, they will glorify him because they know more about the true word as a group. Then, well, they will know more at that time. There's more to it. The Bible explains it. So that's what that's saying there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back. So the reason why I went to that again is show you the comparison of him destroying, getting fed up with the world, the ancient world, then bringing the flood, bringing the destruction. What he's going to happen, what's going to happen in the end. He says everybody's going to. Used to said everybody's going to be going to weddings and parties and living their life as if nothing is wrong. Okay, and he's going to come and he's going to cause that flood of chaos. So remember I was when you had first asked me about that podcast, and I was like, oh, the one woman. It's very interesting to listen to that. It's very interesting how she says how quick things would happen if something like that would happen, and how she explains it. It's crazy. It's crazy. All right. So we know go in the house, go into his covenant, lock the door, and wait till he finish doing what he's supposed to, what he's say he's going to do. Okay, that's what he's saying about the ark. Go into the ark. Okay, go into that ark. Okay, verse 19, and I'm gonna pair 19 and 20 together. All right, verse 19, King James Version, and it says, "And every living thing of all flesh, two of every sort, shall thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female." Okay. Then I'm going to go to 20, and it says, of fowls, which are birds, after their kind, of and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, two of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. Okay, going back to 19. All right, we're talking about two. All right, bring two, male and female. All right, and it's going to be a little bit more to that after. Right now, most people know that it was just two of each kind, a male and female, but he has more instructions later on. It says two, and I'm going to read just two of these. Genesis, uh, verse 7, Genesis chapter 7, verse 2 and 3. And it says, "Take with you 7 pairs." There you go. 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take 1 pair of each of the others. Okay? And take 7 pairs of every kind of bird. There must be a male and female in each pair to ensure that all life will survive on the earth after the flood. I'm going to read this over because I want Dixie to hear this. So it says, verse 2, it says, take with you 7 pairs, male and female, of each animal I have approved for eating and for sacrifice, and take 1 pair of each of the others. So Noah does know at this point in time that there's animals that you can eat and that you can't eat. Most people don't think, but at this time there is. So this is where he's telling them, which we'll read probably next week. Verse 7, 1 and 2. Yes, we'll read next week. All right, verse 7, 8, and 9. And it says, with them were all the various kinds of animals, those approved for eating and for sacrifice, and those that were not, along with all the birds and the small animals that scurry along the ground. They entered the boat in pairs, male and female, just as Elohim had commanded Noah. All right. So he's, again, like we talked about the movies, and whether it be Prometheus or whatever. There's been a couple of movies that where they make sure they have animals or different seeds of things of that nature, right? So, um, what else? And then two here on verse two, it sounds like the same thing, but it's not. Okay, so it does say it says two of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. So this is going to refer back to the very beginning. Okay, these references it says two. Okay, Genesis 1:28, and it says, "Then Elohim blessed them and said, Be fruitful and multiply." Okay, fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds of the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. So, what is he doing? He's doing all over what Adam did. Okay, we as men are supposed to take care of the animals, right? We're supposed to reign over the animals. So, he's they're referencing our job as being seen in his likeness, okay? Because we're supposed to govern this world, right? Genesis 2:19, and it says, "So YAHUAH Elohim formed from the ground all the wild animals and all the birds of the sky. He brought them to man to see what he would call them, and the man chose a name for each one." So the man gave all the animals names. Adam gave all the animals names. This go round, he made all the animals what? Come to Noah to get on the ark. Okay? So this showing what we're supposed to be reigning over this earth, governing this earth, because we're in his likeness. Okay? Verse 21, and it says, this is another important one. Remember, go inside, close the door, and wait for my destruction to end, my anger to end. And it says here, and it says, "And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them." Okay? All right, I'm going to read the New Living Translation because it's pretty clear. It says, "And be sure to take on board enough food for your family and for all the animals." So go inside, lock the door, bring enough food. Does that sound pretty legit? Anarchy or whatever that goes on? Go inside, bring enough food. He says, "I will protect you, but prepare." Right? Prepare. All right. And he said, prepare, that means obey. And if you don't obey, so far, y'all kind of getting the language of if you don't obey him, you you on your own, and you know what that means, right? Okay. All right. So I'm going to click on this here. Okay. I'm going to read these references, and then I'm going to go back to this right here. I'm going to read the references underneath. Genesis 1:29 and 30. And it says, "Then Elohim said, Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food, and I have given every green plant as food for all the wild animals, the birds in the sky, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, everything that has life." And that is what happened. So he's talking about food right now. Take enough food. You're looking at it, yeah, and he said green herbs for every animal. So they ate vegetation then. That was that was before sin. That was for all that. And I don't know if we got into all that if he was here. Probably was. All right. Job 38:41. He says, "Who provides food for the ravens when their young cry out to Elohim and wander about in hunger?" Who provides food for the ravens? All right. I'm gonna go some more. They're gonna talk about birds a lot. Psalms 104 verse 27, 28, and it says, they all depend on you to give them food as they need it. When you supply it, they gather it. You open their hands to feed them, and they are richly satisfied. So he's talking about he will provide. Go inside, bring enough food, lock the door. He's going to provide. Okay, things obviously he's talking as we read these. He's talking about bring enough food prepared, but you have to obey, and then I'm going to take care of you. He says, I'm providing. I'm going to provide. Psalms 36:25, and it says, he gives food to every living thing. His faithful love endures forever. Psalms 145 verse 16, and it says, when you open your hand, you satisfy the hunger and thirst of every living thing. Okay, that's another one. Psalms 147:9, and he said, he gives food to every wild animal and feeds the young ravens when they cry. All right. And this one, which is big one, it says, this is Yahusha. He says, look at the birds. They don't plan or harvest or store food in barns. This is why he keeps talking about birds, because every day they go out and have to find food. Okay. He says, look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? So he's telling you right there. He provides for the birds every day. And don't as the people, as the creation he made in his image, don't you think we're more valuable to him than the birds? Don't you know he will protect us? All right, but you have to obey. Make sense? All right, I'm going to go into what I put here, and it says, they were told to prepare here as well as before the Passover. That's before they went out, the Exodus out of Egypt. They was told, Noah was told to prepare food. It was also told to prepare for the Passover, to eat. Go inside, lock the door, because the spirit of death is going to come and kill all the firstborn of the land. So they went inside. First, they covered the doorpost with blood, went inside, cooked their food, prepared their food for the Passover, and they ate. So they was told to prepare that food and to lock the door, do not come out until the next day, until he do what he's doing. This was another day of Yahuwah, right? Before the Exodus. All right. So it's the same thing. He said they were, I wrote, they were told to prepare here as well as before the Passover and great Exodus. All right. Before they left out of Egypt. And it says, and I put this verse here talking about Elijah. Okay. Elijah was a prophet, and Elijah had prayed, for the rains to stop, and it stopped for what, 3 years? Okay, to show Yahuwah's power. Okay, and they was out to kill him. Okay, all of Jezebel's people was out to try to kill him, so he's out hiding. Okay, so I'm going to read this here, and it says, and listen, think about what we're talking about now. Going inside, prepare yourself with food. Okay, go inside and lock the door and wait. Okay, until things are over, right? So think about this story here, and it says, but after a while, the brook dried up, for there was no rainfall anywhere in the land. Then Yahuwah said to Elijah, go and live in the village of Zorah near the city of Sidon. I have instructed a widow there to feed you. So he went to Zarephath. As he arrived at the gate of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, would you please bring me a little water in a cup? As she was going to get it, he called to her, bring me a bite of bread too. But she said, I swear by Yahuwah, your Elohim, that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house, and I have only a handful of flour left in a jar, a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jar. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die. Okay? But Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go ahead and do just what you've said. But make a little bread for me first, then use what's left to prepare a meal for yourself and your son. Sounds wild, huh? Okay? And it says, for this is what Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, says. There will always be flour and olive oil left in your containers until the time when Yahuwah sends rain and the crops grow again. So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. There was always enough flour and olive oil left in that container, just as Yahuwah had promised through Elijah. So, what we're talking about, Noah, and we're talking about the end times. Go inside, bring enough food, okay? And that's just to show your obedience. If you show your obedience, then it's going to get rough, and he's going to provide after. That's what he's saying here. Okay? He said there's going to be enough food in that jar, enough flour and olive oil in that jar until the time when Yahuwah sends rain and the crops grow again. Same thing. Wait till after his anger. Be patient. Obey. Do what I say. Go inside. Bring enough food. Obey. Lock the door. And I will provide for you because you obeyed. You are in my covenant. Okay? I will provide until it's over. All right? Very important. This is why we really have to read this whole Bible, because every verse, the book will answer your questions for everything that you read. If you know the Bible, it will always answer the questions that you have. If you don't understand, it will give you the references, and it shoots you that reference in it, like this story. It shoots it to you. Okay? Just like everything. That's why I'm going to these references, because it's pointing out in other places of time, okay, and future, things to come. Okay? It's going to tell you everything. But if you don't know this stuff, how can you have faith if you don't know this stuff? Because you only know what man knows, right? So your faith can't be strong in him if you don't know his word. Okay? So if somebody would say, go in and do this, you'd be like, you're crazy. I'm going to have to go out and find food and this and that, blah, 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 blah. But because you don't know this information, you out of luck. Okay? Going back to Genesis 21. All right, last one. Okay, and it says Genesis chapter 6, verse 22. Okay, and it says, thus did Noah according to all that Elohim commanded him, so he did. All right, that's probably the most important out of all of this. I want to say it. Zarephath, that was the name of that town. Yeah, that village. So he told him to build a boat. He told him exactly how to build a boat. He did everything that he was told. and how he was told to. Okay. He was told to bring his family. He was told to gather the animals, okay, a certain way. He's told to bring his family, okay, and he was told to close the door. Well, he didn't have to in this situation. He didn't have to close the door because when it started raining, Yahuwah closed the door. Once that door is closed, it's closed. Okay, all right. And again, and I'm going to read this New Living Translation again. I'm going to read 22, and it says, so Noah did everything exactly as Elohim had commanded him. Okay. All right. Let's go to these references. Everything Yah commanded. Okay. Genesis 7:5. And it says, so Noah did everything as Yahuwah commanded him. All right. Genesis 17:23. And it says, and that on that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those who he had bought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskin, just as Elohim had told him. Okay, everybody. That was a part of the physical mark between Yahuwah and Abraham and his descendants is circumcision. And he says, even the people who live in your household that you bought as servants. Okay, he says, everyone born. Okay, and that means that's of his and not of his, but that is in his household. And then it says, and those he had bought. So everybody. So again, when we talk about we're talking about grace. And a lot of people like to talk about grace and being saved and things of that nature. Okay. You can't be saved and you're not going to have grace if you don't do just as Elohim have told us. Okay. And the reason why I say that, because even if, so a lot of people, he made a covenant with the Israelites, okay? Israel and Judah, which is Israelites, okay? And the thing is everybody should be living as the Israelites because that's how he wants everybody to live. Okay? All right. So that's why this is important. This verse, because people who are not of Abraham that lives in the family has to live the same way. Okay? All right. So this is an example of what he's going to be looking for. All right. That's what he's going to be looking for. All right. Exodus 40:16. Moses proceeded to do everything just as Elohim, as Yahuwah had commanded him. All right. This is going to be a few of these with this. This is when he was building the temple and the ark. Oop, I got out of it. All right. And it says, when he brought the ark of the covenant, that's what I was telling y'all about, into the tabernacle and hung the inner curtain to shield it from view, just as Yahuwah had commanded him. All right, back. Deuteronomy. All right. This is after, this is actually before the Ten Commandments, but he's referring to the commandments here. And it says, so be careful to obey all commandments I give you. You must not add anything to them or subtract anything from them. Okay? Very important. Yeah. Yep. Adding things. Yep. Matthew 7, chapter 7, verse 24-27. This is the Messiah, and everyone who listens to my teaching and follow it is wise, like like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents, and the flood waters raise and the winds beat against the house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. Okay? But anyone who hears my teaching and does not obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against the house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Okay? So listening to him is building your house on bedrock, not you getting washed away. Okay? All right. John chapter 2, verse 5. And it says, but his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. And y'all know what this is about? Okay. This is when Yahushua and the disciples went to a wedding. Okay. I think one of his cousins' wedding, and they ran out of wine. Okay. And his mother came to him and said, hey, we ran out of wine, And he was like, it's not my time to do miracles, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually he did it. But she told the servants, she said, but his mother told the servants, do whatever he tells you. Obey. And then things will happen for you. Okay? Even 100%. That is real strength. And the strength is not within us. All right? It's given to us when you let go. Real strength is being meek, is having every qualifying measure to be able to take care of yourself by yourself, but submitting. That's real strength. You see what I'm saying? That's being meek. That's being strong. That's being obedient. That's literally what obedience is. Obedience is strength, ultimate strength, being able to submit to an authority or a law, okay? To a higher authority or a law. So that's why I was blessed through my journey of lifting to understand that, because I had to, in lifting terms, I had to submit myself under that weight. Okay, most people think, well, you under 500, 600 pounds, you got to be aggressive, you got to oppose. No, you have to relax and let go, which sounds contradicting. But I have to follow the rules of the weight because it has more authority over me, right? I have to submit to its rules, right? It's very tight knit. I mean, again, it's a blessing. It always brings, yeah. Again, we know that he was brought into the Ark of the Covenant, talking about the Ark, the boat. He was brought into the Ark of the Covenant because of what? He was righteous. Okay? Again, the word perfect is, again, I talked about this last week. The word perfect is very offensive to people because, like, we can't be perfect. Blah, 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 blah. What he means by perfect is to be righteous and to repent. Because if there's a difference between being a sinner and sinning. Okay? Everybody sins. Okay? But sinning, okay, is you're constantly doing it. Okay? You're deliberately doing these things. Okay? Everybody sins, but you turn back, you look to the Mashiach, the Messiah, okay? You ask for forgiveness and turn from that. Okay? You don't purposely look to sin and say, oh, well, just this time, or he'll understand, or blah, 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 blah. It's a difference. Sinning And everybody is a sinner. Okay? All right, it's a difference. To continue to look for iniquity is to look forward to doing something. Okay? Seeking it out. Okay? Which a lot of people do in Christianity. They say, well, he knows my heart. Okay? He'll forgive me. They abusing grace. So looking to sin and knowing that you're sinning is being a sinner. You're sinning. You're in sin. Okay? So he was righteous and perfect. Okay? Not to say that he didn't sin. All right. So he was brought into the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark, the boat. Okay? Because the boat was anointed. It was a sanctuary. Okay? It was holy. It was the Ark of the Covenant. It was a representation of the actual Ark of the Covenant. Okay? Covered in pitch and tar to keep it to annul water, right? To disannul water, to reflect what was coming to destroy it, right? So he was told to come in, all right? And he was told to bring in the animals, bring in his family, and then he was told to what? Close the door and wait, right? Ultimately, as we read the actual flood next week, we're gonna know that it was rough in that boat. He was ready to come out. They was ready to come out. I'm talking about a year, almost a year. Yeah, a year in that boat with animals, enough food. You're talking about waste. You're talking about. Can you imagine that? Nope. Nope. Yep. See, you always want to prove me wrong. It was a year, baby. Yep. They got off. They got off the boat a year. Actual April 17th. The second month of the year, 17th is when that door opened. Yep. So it was a whole. Yep. All right. So we know the flood is destruction. Okay. Then, and we know the flood in the future is what? People. Okay. Chaos. Literally, you live in deception, then he's going to give you over to deception. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. Okay. So we know the flood is people. Okay. That because of the devil, or what you want to call the Antichrist, when the Antichrist do come, blah 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 blah, it's setting up for a system. The people are the things that's happening now is setting people up to live and to accept that system. We don't even know it. Well, it comes to movies, comes to the culture, it comes to music, it comes to the government. It's all played, and we're seeing it through social media. We're seeing it right now. Okay, and we're living in it and don't even know it, don't even realize it. We see it, but we don't know what it is because we're not familiar with the Bible. Okay, so that's the people. Okay, and he said at the very end, he said, do everything exactly. He did everything exactly as Elohim commanded him. Okay, so that means obedience. Okay, to him. And how we know what he asked of us? How do we know that? Is only through this. Okay, the more we know this, the closer we get, and the closer we actually get to hear from him. Okay, because this is, he says, discern. How can we discern if we don't know what he's asking?